You had to be someplace at
I,
3.
I do, but I think I can tell them I'll be late.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm getting ready to do housekeeping now.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Welcome committee members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Rules Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us. We are using Zoom with the goal to foster a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you'd like to comment during the meeting, please use the raise hand feature. Please utilize this tool to virtually indicate you would like to speak in order to help the chair facilitate the discussion. A friendly reminder, this is a video conference. Per Bagley Clean requirements, all cameras must be kept on during the duration of the meeting. If you're not able to have your camera on, you must indicate a reason for your non-appearance during the meeting. Please be aware of the surroundings behind you. All meetings will be recorded and posted to the State Bar's website. Zoom captioning is available. To enable, select live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom screen, then select enable transcript. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. Oh, perfect. I was going to ask if Joyce was going to be promoted. So there she is. Um, Dawn wasn't able to join today, so we are really fortunate to have Joyce and Crystal in addition to Erica. And I think Kim Turner will be joining us at some point, right? Okay, there she is. Speaking of Kim Turner, we're going to call the meeting to order. And I think, hi, good morning or afternoon now. I think the first item is for us to do a roll call. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll take the roll. Blakemore,
Here.
Alsaroff, Babcock,
Here.
Wong,
Here.
Milrod,
Here.
Morales, and Sandville.
Here.
5 members present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. And then I'll go through liaisons and State Bar staff. Selena Copeland,
Present.
Melanie Snyder, Nicole Claro. Don't see her. And then just noting that my colleagues Kim Turner, Joyce Song, Brady Dewar, and Crystal Bundang are on the call. Thank you.
Welcome, Brady. Thank you also for joining. Okay, I think our first item is to do public comment. As a reminder, public comment should be about the topics for discussion today. Today we're discussing rules for legal aid support centers. And so the comment should be about those agenda items. But with that, we will see if we have any public comment. And I'll make a note that we are going to ask people to limit their public comment to 3 minutes.
No one has their hand. Oh, sorry. Someone just popped their hand up. Hold on 1 second.
Kim, I also wanted to note that Judge Seligman had noticed his desire to speak prior to the meeting, and I believe he also has time constraints. So to the extent that we can allow Judge Seligman to talk first, if he's available, I believe he's on the call.
Yes, he is. I'll do that one first.
Thank you.
Judge Seligman.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was going to be on the telephone or not. Well, thank you very much for listening to me. It's nice to see some old friends from way back when. I was the original founder of the Impact Fund back in 1972. It's December 72 is our first 92, excuse me. And I was on the commission, of course, in many years, including on the Rules Committee. I want to focus my comments briefly on proposed rules 3.673B1 and 2. And I want to go back in time because the Impact Fund did its first training in 1994. Since that time, while I was there for 20 years, we did literally hundreds of trainings. I understand they've probably doing more now, accelerated even more. But the model of our trainings was pretty well established early on. It was a combination of qualified legal services projects, and others who attended those trainings. They were either in person or they were done, certainly in more recent years, by Zoom. And that was the model. And our concept was an interdisciplinary model in which we tried to bring together folks in legal services programs with other folks to network, to join, to share ideas and the like. But the most important thing about the training, which I think is critical to the analysis of these new rules, is the trainings did not change either qualitatively or quantitatively based on how many non-QSLPs were present. We would have done exactly the same, and in fact, at times did exactly the same training if the only people attending was QLSPs. In fact, one way of thinking about this is like if you take a class at UC and there's 100 students there, I have a good friend who audits. He gets permission to audit. And you could have one to infinite number of auditors at those classes, but it's exactly the same training, the same expense. There's no difference one way or the other. So I want to turn to the purpose of the rules, which I agree on. And I think you all have spent a lot of time thinking hard on how to do this. The idea is, as you say in your analysis, that the amendments, your purpose was that support centers use state bar funds to directly propel legal support services for QLSPs and to ensure such work benefits qualifying Californians, even when non-Californians may benefit. And I endorse that goal. We don't want our money going for non-QSOP purposes. But the way you've set up the analysis, which is looking at the majority of organizations or pro rata, and I'll talk about narrative in a moment, really asks the wrong question. The real question is state bar money being used for non-state bar purposes? For the training programs that we have, the answer is no, because it doesn't matter. The same expense would be incurred, the same teaching would have been incurred if no non-QSLP individuals were there. We get essentially an additional benefit by having the non-QSLP folks there, and that is the benefit of networking, of sharing ideas, of exposing people to a range of ideas. But you don't end up expending any additional money. I think an entirely proper question would be whether these trainings incur any additional expenses as a result of non-QSOP people attending. If, for example, you end up adding an additional teacher, or you had to use a larger room with more expenses for that, those additional expenses should not be spent based on QSOP funding that you've given us. And that's an appropriate question. Are you incurring additional spending, or are you diluting the QSOP funding?
Judge Seligman, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the time has expired. I don't know.
That was my main point, and I appreciate very much having the opportunity to present it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Rules Committee. My name is Nnenaya Amuchi, and I am the supervising attorney at the Qualified Support Center, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. I comment today in agreement with other support centers that we strongly oppose the proposed changes to the support center rules. While framed as accountability, these changes would undermine the statutory role of support centers and make it harder, not easier, for QLSPs to serve low-income Californians and widen the justice gap in California. We deeply believe in practicing interdependence among QLSP in unique, flexible, and collaborative ways. This approach increases quality, sustainability, and is deeply integral to legal services to low-income Californians. First, the majority QLSP and pro rata funding rules breaks how legal aid actually works. The statute requires that state bar funds support QLSPs, not that QLSPs be the majority of every training or advocacy space. Legal services don't happen in silos. QLSPs rely on support centers to convene judges, agencies, community partners, and national experts so that the work is effective in real life and practical terms. The proposed rule would disincentivize collaboration, force artificial limits on who can attend trainings, and require impracticable retractive tracking and cost splitting that divert staff time away from legal support. The result will be fewer, weaker trainings for QLSPs and worse outcomes for clients, which we strongly oppose. Second, the proration of national and out-of-state work would deeply harm federal advocacy that directly relates to protecting Californians. Many of the biggest threats to Californians come from federal policy and national litigation. Forcing support centers to parse out California versus non-California benefit is often impossible and will discourage the very impact litigation and policy advocacy that materially protects Californians. California has consistently positioned itself as a leader within the advocacy space, encouraging other states to follow our advocacy and litigation. Fourth, the proposed 20% significant level threshold prioritizes numeric reach over substantive impact and undermines specialized support. Support centers exist to provide deep expertise where it's needed most, even if that serves a smaller subset of QLSPs. Not all support centers have the expertise to provide to all QLSPs, and increasing the number of QLSPs that are concentrated on specific legal issues, such as discrete legal needs within immigration law, shouldn't automatically mean support centers are capable or appropriate to work with all QLSPs. We need more legal aid, but support centers should stick to the expertise they have, not superficial engagement quotas. Finally, we appreciate allowing direct services at QLSP requests, but additional referral hurdles would delay justice and discourage QLSPs from seeking this needed support. We respectfully ask the committee to withdraw these changes and preserve the flexible, collaborative role the legislator intended for support centers. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Kimberly, is there another comment?
There are several. I'll let the next person speak.
Okay, and then I'll just let you continue to call on people as you identify them.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Perez.
Good afternoon. My name is Sergio Perez, the Executive Director of the Center for Human Rights and Constitutional Law. I am commenting on the proposed amendment to Rule 3.673 and the likely unintended consequences of the proposed changes. The center is a qualified support center and for decades has benefited from state bar support in funding its work in the service of California, a state that is bound in every significant way with its immigrant and refugee communities. The center serves those communities through its training for legal practitioners and its impact litigation intended to address systemic violations of their rights. As a support center, Circulate routinely provides advocacy support for QLSPs through impact litigation designed to protect the rights of California's immigrant communities. This work frequently involves federal class action litigation that QLSPs identify as necessary, but cannot bring themselves due to programmatic restrictions, limited capacity, or lack of expertise. For example, in late 2025, we filed a case on behalf of immigrant survivors of serious crimes who have been targeted by ICE for arrest, imprisonment, and deportation. These policies directly impair QLSPs, although this litigation has a clear and substantial nexus to California and directly benefits QLSPs and their California immigrant clients, the proposed rule would bar the use of state bar funds for the full scope of the case solely because it is brought as a nationwide class action whose relief extends beyond California. In practice, the proposed rule would prevent impact litigation from being brought at all, as support centers would be required to secure separate funding for an artificially defined non-California portion of the same work, funding that many support centers will be unable to obtain amid the retreat of federal support. The only alternative would be to force cases into California-only classes, an approach that neither reduces litigation costs nor provides greater protection to indigent Californians and instead unnecessarily forecloses nationwide relief without any corresponding benefit to Californians or QLSPs, particularly in an area of law that is primarily federal and that is unfortunately very active during these dark times. Thank you so much for your consideration and for your hard work in representing the interests of all Californians.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Farron. I'm with One Justice. I'm commenting also on item 5.1, the Support Center rules revisions. Just to acknowledge, we agree with what was expressed in the written comments that were submitted to the committee by a coalition of support centers and the comments of the other support centers today. We appreciate that the State Bar held extensive town halls in December to connect with all of us and with QLSPs over concerns about the proposed amendments. But in reviewing the amendments before the committee today, it doesn't appear that much has been changed in the language itself. It appears that many of the proposed changes in response to feedback is to promise to clarify various points in the handbook without providing us with much concrete information about what those changes will look like. A specific concern I want to raise is section 3.672. We do appreciate that the definition of legal training includes the or between legal education and capacity building. However, in the definition of legal technical assistance, the language allows support centers to enhance the legal skills or knowledge of QLSP staff or enhance their ability to provide quality legal services. We believe the second part of that sentence encompasses much of the work that One Justice does, including providing guidance and assistance on operational issues such as human resources, finance, supervision support, leadership development, and other key aspects of nonprofit management. This support is key to ensuring that QLSPs are able to seek and maintain funding, including from the State Bar itself. Our primary concern is with one of the ineligibility examples, that providing technical assistance regarding a human resources electronic payroll platform that nonprofits generally use would be ineligible. Topics such as payroll and benefits platforms, technology consultants, retirement plan administrators, insurance recommendations, and audit assistance regularly arise on One Justice managed listservs and convenings. These topics are invaluable to ensuring that the QLSPs are able to recruit and retain staff and that staff are able to effectively provide quality legal services to indigent Californians. Providing this example as an ineligible activity does not serve QLSPs. Overall, our concern is the sort of ambiguous language in this specific type of example gives us a concern that a large portion of non-substantive legal work would be considered ineligible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks to the State Bar staff for the thoughtful work that's gone into these proposed revisions. I'm Carrie Holmes, the Executive Director of the Center for Access to Quadros, a current support center, one of the newer kids on the block. I want to echo the previous comments made today, but I'll refrain from repeating any comments already so well covered by my colleagues. I would like to comment on proposed rule 3.673B, particularly the majority QLSP requirement for training supported by State Bar funds from the particular perspective of a family law practitioner. Family law remains one of the largest and most persistently underserved areas of civil legal need for low-income Californians. Thousands of families navigate divorce, custody, support, and property division each year without full representation. Because the demand so dramatically exceeds available resources, many QLSPs, including the ones where I previously worked on family law matters, rely on limited scope services as a practical and responsible way to reach more clients. And those limited scope services depend on a functioning ecosystem. So QLSP attorneys might prepare pleadings or appear at one particularly important hearing or help secure some specialized orders while clients remain self-represented for most of the process. The effectiveness of that QLSP work depends heavily on judges, court staff, self-help partners having specialized information and training. Trainings that include QLSPs alongside those partners are not incidental to the QLSP service. They're integral to making limited scope representation work for QLSP clients. I'm concerned that the proposed rule could unintentionally discourage these collaborative trainings, even though they directly strengthen QLSP services and QLSP client outcomes. I respectfully urge the Commission to preserve the current flexibility in this area so that support centers can continue to reinforce the collaborative structures that family law access to justice depends upon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Holmes. So another comment? Welcome, Mr. Roller.
Thank you. My name is Seamus Roller. I'm the Executive Director of the National Housing Law Project. We're one of the original national support centers founded in 1968. There's a lot been talked about already, so I want to focus a little bit on permissible use of funds. In particular, I was thinking about the administrative burden of the structure that's set up for this. And in my letter, I tried to sort of quantify a little bit what I thought it would cost given our original services. But when I was walking the dog this morning, I was thinking about this, and what kind of came to me was, well, by the time this rule kicks in, probably IOLTA funding will have gone down maybe under $1 million each for the support centers. And, given who we are at NHLP, we're about a $4.5 million a year organization overall. We have, sort of enough general fund and other foundation support. What I figured that we would do if this rule passes as it's structured right now is we would just stop billing all of our federal work that we do in collaboration with QLSPs to the state bar. But the administrative burden in my mind is so big that it's just not worth it. We do enough work within California and enough work in direct technical assistance that I think we could probably just stop billing altogether any of the federal work we do. All of our trainings that we do during the year, I'd probably run dual trainings and just do a QLSP majority one and then bring in all the non-QLSPs in a different training and be able to bill enough that way. And so I wanted to give you a sense of what I think the burden is on this around administrative, that I would just pull all the federal work out. But that's not an option for most of the other organizations in how they think about this work, right? And that for many of them, they either need IOLTA funding in order to do federal policy work, and don't kind of have that. But that's, I think, the scope of what this would take, given the volume of the work that we do, touching probably, 30 federal bills a year, a bunch of regulations. Not all of that work is funded by IOLTA and EAF, but it gets touched upon. And if I have to kind of follow through and write a memo on each single one of those things, and I'm only going to get 20% of the funding anyways, it just stops being worth it on our side. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Mr. Roller. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Elizabeth Zerker. I'm a senior attorney with the National Health Law Program. Our organization is a nationally recognized expert in healthcare law and policy and began in 1969 as a legal backup center in Los Angeles. I appreciate the opportunity to comment and thank you for your extensive work on support center rules. We submitted comments along with other support centers, but want to reiterate our concerns with the majority QLSP requirement in Rule 3.673B, and help hosts 2 standing monthly calls for healthcare advocates. One is focused on California-specific issues, and another addresses national Medicaid and Affordable Care Act threats. These webinars and educational forums, in addition to the 2 standing monthly calls, we have many webinars during the year. These webinars and educational forums for advocates serve many QLSPs, but also other advocates who directly interact with indigent low-income health consumers on Medi-Cal or other healthcare affordability programs. These advocates may send these individuals or families to QLSPs for follow-up legal assistance. While we appreciate the opportunity to qualitatively explain why a majority of QLSPs may not have attended a training or meeting, given the number of events we hold yearly, this will be extremely difficult to track and report and may force us to limit our events in California to QLSPs only, which would undermine the collaborative advocacy networks which serve low-income Californians who depend on a robust, well-trained healthcare advocacy community. And thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. This is Lindsay Nacco. I'm the Executive Director of the Impact Fund. And as you heard from our founder, Judge Seligman, we have been a qualified support center for over 20 years. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed rule changes, in particular, the 3.673B1 and 2 and 3.675B2. As described in our comment letters, we are in a time now and for the foreseeable years where collaboration and multi-state and federal advocacy is desperately needed, and at a moment when resources are available. And our ability to combine the two for the benefit of indigent Californians and QLSPs will be limited by the proposed rule changes. I appreciate very much the committee's work on this, the listening sessions, and the resulting memorandum that came out on Friday. But as a lawyer, I am bound by the language of the rule itself. And the previous issues that existed back in October mostly remain. I want to be very clear that we understand and deeply respect our mandate as a state bar-funded support center to undertake activities and advocacy that benefit indigent Californians and California's QLSPs. Any comments with regard to 3.673 are not in any way an attempt to evade that responsibility. The current flexibility in the state bar rules allows us to provide innovative trainings in person and online for QLSPs in partnership with other nonprofit and private public interest attorneys to give them the opportunity to strategize together, learn from each other, and lift up the expertise of our QLSP partners for a national audience. The state bar funds also currently allow us to represent QLSPs as amici in federal litigation in the Ninth Circuit and elsewhere. Back in 2024, we used state bar funds to file an amicus brief in the Sixth Circuit with Betzedek, Centro Legal de la Raza, Legal Aid at Work, and Public Counsel on a case on a very pertinent issue with regard to the standards under Rule 23, class actions, which is critical to all of our areas of practice. State bar funds also currently allow us to file impact litigation with and at the request of our QLSP partners in California and elsewhere, like our current case filed in the Western District of Washington to defend the availability of the Head Start program within California and elsewhere. That litigation was filed at the request of Legal Aid of Marin and Community Legal Services of East Palo Alto. A few years ago, we filed a case with Western Center on Law and Poverty to represent a nationwide class of food stamp recipients on the verge who are at risk of losing their benefits on the verge of the government shutdown. And that work was done at the request of Centro Legal de la Raza, Bay Area Legal Aid, and Community Legal Services of East Palo Alto. This is work that our QLSP partners need us to do, that they often cannot do themselves, and that directly benefits them and the communities they serve. This is also work that is expensive and extremely labor intensive. And the new proposed rules will jeopardize our ability to plan ahead and marshal and feel confident that we have the resources to pursue this type of impact and systemic litigation. The proposed rule changes effectively disincentivize this work and will make it much more difficult for an organization like ours to pursue it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome, Allison. Come hi.
Thank you very much. This is Allison Kamai. I'm the Legal Program Director at the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, a support center based in San Francisco. We at the ILRC submitted a couple of comments along with the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies. And I also just wanted to chime in here to thank you for your attention and also to express concerns with Rule 3.673, sections B1 and B2. At the ILRC, we provided approximately 205 trainings in 2025, and given the high volume of our trainings attended and valued by QLSPs, we are very concerned about the impracticality of predicting in advance whether training attendees will be a majority of QLSPs. And that affects our ability to properly plan training activities if there's uncertainty about whether our after-the-fact narrative justification will meet commission approval. And providing an opportunity to give narrative justifications, we appreciate it, but it also does significantly increase the administrative burden that we would face given just the high volume of our trainings. And our worry overall is that this change will chill our ability to provide robust, timely, and responsive training opportunities for QLSPs at a time when they need our support the most. And I just wanted to chime in about section B2 as well, which addresses out-of-state advocacy, and want to emphasize the negative impact on this change on our ability to provide advocacy support to QLSPs who are practicing immigration law. Given the nature of immigration law, which is federal, the benefit to other states from our advocacy is unavoidable. But our costs related to this work do not increase when other states benefit. So our concern is that this change would threaten our ability to engage in federal advocacy efforts of critical importance to QLSPs and their clients. And we believe this result is the opposite of the legislative and commission's goals to support QLSPs and their indigent clients. So thank you for your consideration and attention.
Thank you for the comment.
Hello, thank you, members of the Rules Committee, for your time and your ears today. My name is Alegria de la Cruz, and I'm the Director of Advancement at the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation. We are proud to stand with our partners throughout the state in written comments that were earlier submitted, requesting deeper consideration of the unintended impacts of the proposed rule changes on our work and on our clients and communities. The California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation was founded in 1981 in direct response to the restrictive funding policies of the Federal Legal Services Corporation, which excluded undocumented immigrants from pro bono legal services and hindered access to justice for hardworking families and individuals. The CRLAF offers statewide leadership in public policy development, technical assistance, impact litigation, and community outreach and education, advocating for and working alongside farm workers, low-wage workers, mixed status families, and undocumented workers. Our areas of expertise include agricultural health issues, such as pesticide exposure and worker safety violations, labor and civil rights, housing and community infrastructure, and immigration and citizenship. While we focus on the unique issues facing California farm workers, our state's positionality as a leader in the agricultural industry, nationally and globally, also creates an opportunity for our work to similarly provide leadership and an example to our partners in farm worker justice nationally and globally. We are extremely proud and grateful for our long-term partnership with the State Bar of California as a support center, and proud to provide a range of services to California legal service programs and their clients related to advocacy support, case consultations, training, and representation, as well as practice advisories and publications. The proposed changes to the State Bar rules, specifically Rule 3.673B1 and 2, would significantly impact our training and advocacy work on behalf of our QLSP partners, as well as community-based organizations, community leaders, and community members. We would much rather spend our limited and valuable time in ensuring that the information and support we provide gets out to our communities rather than documenting and ensuring that, quote, a majority of attendees are QLSPs, and then needing to, in the case that it falls below some majority threshold, backfill with our limited general support funds. The communities and community partners who we serve are commonly known as hard to reach and already lack equitable access to legal and support services. Creating barriers to collaboration and support services is the last thing that they and we want and need in this critical time for our work. Similarly, the proposal for support centers to limit the use of state bar funds to the share of work attributable to California would create unnecessary administrative burdens to quantify the impact of our support activities and our advocacy to California. A recent real example is a comment letter, like many that we create on a regular basis, that we submitted opposing the United States HHS's proposed rule excluding undocumented children, pregnant women, and mothers from Head Start, with our particular focus on those unique intersections in which our clients live: rural, poor, immigrant, and farm workers. Creating some methodology to pull apart our impact of our advocacy attributable to California would take us away from the critical work that we are glad to do with your support. Please reconsider the negative impact of these proposed changes and make sure that our clients and larger community partners who cannot and should not shoulder any additional unclear administrative responsibilities so that we can focus on the work to ensure increased access to their rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. I see at least one other hand up, I think. Welcome, Stephen.
Yes, hi, my name is Stephen Knight. I'm the executive director with WorkSafe, a proud California legal services support center with a focus on worker health and safety. Thank you, Rules Committee members, for your time today. I'm here, like many others, just to underscore the real concerns detailed in our multiple joint comment letters, including the letter signed by many former executive directors of WorkSafe and other support centers. A focus of the letters is placing these proposals in the context of the specific history and current impact of support centers in supporting QOSPs and indigent Californians. We have crafted our programs and services to meet the requirements of the State Bar and the needs of our QOSP partners. The legal ecosystems my colleagues have described already, the support centers create are connecting QOSPs with communities in need of representation and laying foundations for changes in the law through impact litigation. The proposed rule changes could upend our programming and services without any identifiable benefit to our QOSP partners. I would also like to support the comments from Lee Farron with One Justice about trainings as it relates to the proposed rule in 3.672. So with appreciation for the Commission's thoughtful stewardship of these vital funds, we urge you to withdraw the proposed rule changes as identified in our written comments. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. I think there are two other people with hands up.
Hello, my name is Erin Smith, and I'm a commissioner on the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission. I support the over 110 pages of letters that this committee received opposing proposed Rule 3.673, and I have 3 oral comments today in addition to the written comment that I submitted. First, I request that the committee clarify the rationale for limiting funding for hybrid audience and national services. There's been no specific concern identified. If the goal is to ensure that large trainings with few QLSPs in attendance are of sufficient value to QLSPs, existing State Bar oversight already ensures this. This includes the priority setting requirement, where support centers must set their priorities in collaboration with QLSPs every 3 years, monitoring visits, where State Bar staff can inquire about any trainings with a lower percentage of QLSPs to ensure the content was relevant and supportive services, and the significant level test, which ensures support centers are serving a sufficient number of QLSPs. If the goal is to redefine the role of support centers, that should be addressed with the legislature rather than through rulemaking. Even if that is not the intent, as you've heard, it will be the impact of this proposed rule, and a change that significant should be made by the legislature rather than a state bar rule. My second comment is that if the committee members have concerns about the 21 Support Centers' unanimous opposition to this proposed rule, or have not yet been able to absorb the extensive public comments, I urge you not to pass it through to the 45-day comment stage. While that may seem like a harmless outcome of today's meeting, in my experience, proposals gain credibility as they advance, making this meeting the most effective time for meaningful deliberation and correction. Finally, regarding the process, the written proposal was only made available last Friday in the late afternoon, leaving just over one business day for comment. This is insufficient for such substantial changes and contributes to the very burnout and retention issues the sector seeks to resolve. Quite frankly, we cannot credibly talk about recruitment, retention, and burnout in legal aid while managing this process in this manner. I urge the State Bar and the Commission to implement a more respectful 4-week comment period for future proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin, for your comments. I think there might be one more.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? This is Shashi Hanuman, the Executive Director of the Public Interest Law Project.
We can hear you just fine. Thanks for joining.
Okay, thank you. The Public Interest Law Project has trained qualified legal services program project staff to implement, advocate, and enforce housing element law since 1996. I wanted to talk just specifically about one example, but also reinforce Commissioner Smith's comments. I thought those were very good comments, and having come from a QLSP background, I will say that, go and then becoming the executive director of PILP, it seemed clear when I first started here and learned all of the different reporting requirements that we had, that existing state bar oversight already assures that we serve QLSPs directly and significantly. And I do appreciate that because I completely believe in our mission to serve QLSPs. The point that I wanted to make is that as we do that, and particularly because implementation and enforcement of laws that benefit low-income people depend on informed and engaged stakeholders. So there have been times where, at the request of a QLSP partner, we have conducted housing element law trainings where there were a few QLSPs and 30 to 40 residents or community partners, because greater knowledge of the law benefits everyone. And these trainings are designed to directly support QLSP advocacy. And they have been part of our, compliance campaigns that were QLSP led, resulting in enforceable commitments. So I think education about the law and how to use it is really important and shouldn't be siloed. So I would urge the State Bar to really preserve flexibility for support centers. And really it's to meet community and QLSP needs, as in our example, where we wanted to support the QLSP's request, but technically we wouldn't have met this guideline. And so the cost of flying down to give this training, the cost of prep time, the cost of just all the time just giving the training, it sounds like under this rule, we might not have been able to bill that time. And so especially in this time with the federal climate changing, with funding becoming more difficult in the future, would definitely urge the State Bar to think about how to make funding more flexible. And also, just reinforce the point that it's really hard to predict training when trainings are free. People that sign up for trainings will sign up and they'll say, I'm going to attend this training, but then they might find that they're too busy. And then they don't attend. And so I think that's problematic for purposes of just thinking about how we're going to account for the funds and conflict with our current practices in terms of billing and create unnecessary burdens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, I think we have finished the public comment period. I think there's just, right, is that right?
Selena has her hand raised.
Is she making a public comment? Because she's a liaison, right? So I'm trying to understand her role, just for clarity.
I think I usually put myself last on stack after the other public
Okay.
members because I'm
Okay, go for it then. You can have 3 minutes.
I appreciate the 3 minutes. We did not submit, so Selena from Legal Aid Association of California, we did not submit written comments because we had already submitted written comments as part of the larger packet. And I understood that all of the support centers had planned on commenting, and we really echo their concerns, but largely about the practicality. So you've heard a lot of examples today about organizations that are concerned about the accounting. I think the timekeeping would be a challenge. And we appreciate the option for a narrative response, especially for that pro rata training issue. But I think what you will heard and what you'll continue to hear from is just confusion on how you track that. If you're planning 2 monthly calls and you're billing your time to a certain grant because you know you'll use it in these calls, how do you months later kind of try to claw back that? And I think it's against general accounting best practices to go back and change months that have previously been closed, or even if it's been audited financials. So most of the comments from organizations that I've heard a lot about is just how difficult it will be from accounting perspective. I also think it might help if we just continue to name whether we're talking about primary purpose or use of funds, because a lot of organizations will kind of use those terms interchangeably. And I saw at least one comment that said, make sure that we aren't saying primary, so, QLSP. So just flagging that even for support centers themselves, especially support centers who are in growth period, it's helpful to keep those buckets really separate. Primary purpose quite large, permissible use of funds smaller, and just really making sure that we're not mixing the two. But we support the comments from the support center community, which are largely about keeping doing the great work that they're doing and making sure that it's not creating more confusion.
Thanks, Selena. Okay, I think we are through the public comment period. Is that right, Kimberly?
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
No one else with their hand raised.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who provided a public comment. We're going to turn now, before we dive into the discussion of the rules, to a report. So I first wanted to welcome. We have moved from a very small committee to a much larger committee. So I welcome Patience, who was the former Rules Committee's chair. I guess she took a year off and decided to jump back in. And Ken Babcock, who is a longtime legal aid director. Maria is not, she's not here today, so we will welcome her the next time when she joins us. So, and then we have both Jonathan and Tony, who are continuing members. So thank you for your continued service. And as I said at the beginning, Amin, who's also a member of the committee, wasn't able to join. I wanted to just give you a brief update. This is not the only set of rules this committee has been working on. The bar has established a process really to look at all of the rules that the State Bar has and to see if there's any changes needed. And there were several that went out for public comment, and that public comment generally happens after the rules go to the full Legal Services Trust Fund Commission. So the Rules Committee isn't the last stop before the public comment period. I think it goes to the commission, who then authorizes it to be set out for public comment. But the prior rules were the purchase of real property, Legal Services Trust Fund and grantee investment policies, audit deadline, and fiscal documentation requirements. And that public comment period closed on January 15th. Over 100 people opened the comment, but where there were just 4 completed comments. 2 responses, including a letter from LAC, supported the changes. 1 response opposed the proposals without additional reasoning, and 1 response agreed only if modified. The modification was that free legal services should be available to U.S. citizens only, which is not a statutory requirement beyond the scope of the rules changes. The Trust Fund Commission previously voted to send the audit deadline and fiscal documentations directly to the Board of Trustees after public comments if no comments were received requesting attention. These were placed on an expedited timeline in order to apply for, in order to have those rules apply during the upcoming application process. So that has happened. And those will go to the Board of Trustees on February 26th, and the remaining items will be on the March 5th Legal Services Trust Fund Commission agenda. So that's the status of a whole other set of rules that are nearing completion, separate from the ones that we're talking about today. So that is my report. And then I think Erica Carroll may want to give an additional update. So turn it over to her.
Thanks, Catherine. I think I'll give my colleague Brady Dewar from our Office of General Counsel a moment to make a statement, and then I'll get to my update.
Perfect. Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Welcome,
Hi, everybody.
Brady.
My name is Brady Dewar. I am Assistant General Counsel for the State Bar, and I, along with my colleagues, support the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission and OAI staff. And in relation to some of these public comments, I think some questions came up from committee members about what the legal review was and what it meant. And essentially, the legal review is part of this process is the working groups come up with policy recommendations and develop rules, and essentially the legal review in general and on this one was that these are permissible and these are a reasonable interpretation of the statute, but they are not necessarily the only interpretation of the statute. And we as a regulatory body issuing regulations have some leeway to reasonably implement the statute. So I unfortunately have another commitment that I'll have to leave for in a while, but my advice is if the commission or if the committee, excuse me, wants to retool these rules for policy reasons or in response to public comments or other concerns, basically the process would be that we go back and figure out what it is that we want to achieve under the law, and then figure out what language would actually be permissible within the constraints of the law.
Okay, thanks for that. Good luck with your next meeting.
Thank
Okay,
you, Brady.
Erica.
Yes, I also just have a brief update on rules changes that went to the Board of Trustees last November. These were rules that were in process for quite some time. It was a package primarily of fiscal rules, codifying fiscal practices. And they were approved by the Board of Trustees on November 21st. So some of these changes are going to have meaningful impact on the upcoming IELTS and EAF application process. So for example, there's been a definition of terms that typically would have fallen in the past under the header of pass-through funds. We've now kind of broken that out into specific types of expenditures. QLSPs will no longer need to back out their IELTS and EAF expenditures from the prior year. It's also going to remove the exchanged funds aspect of the application. And so basically we're hoping have a meaningful impact for the ease of the application process while still maintaining accountability in the application process. And so staff provided a webinar to current grantees in December to apprise them of the changes and how it might impact their practice now and how they might start applying the rules and considering them. So we're looking forward to kind of implementing that in the application in a few months, and I'm just happy that these rules have been incorporated, and the committee's hard work is now kind of been brought to fruition, at least on these topics.
Thanks for that update. Anybody have any questions about the updates before we go to approval of the minutes? Okay, so we have minutes from October 29th to approve. And I think the rule from the State Bar's practice and rule is that even if you were not a member of the committee, it is permissible to vote to approve the minutes. Just understanding that the people that were there also are voting on them as being accurate. So entirely acceptable for you to do that if you're comfortable doing that. So are there any comments or changes to the minutes? I'm not hearing any, so I will make a motion and maybe ask that either Tony or Jonathan, as a member of the committee, then second that motion.
I'll go
I will
ahead and
second. Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
it's okay, John. It doesn't matter.
I've recorded the second as Tony, but thank you both.
Thank you. Okay.
Take roll. Alsaroff, Babcock,
Yes.
Wong,
Yes.
Milrod,
Yes.
Morales, Sandfield,
Yes.
Blakemore.
Yes.
5 yeses, no nos. The motion passes.
Perfect, thank you. So we're now going to turn to the business item, which is the item that you had the comments on. I want to just say a couple things before staff start presenting the slides. First of all, to thank the staff, both Erica and Kim, who I cannot tell you how many hours they have spent working on this. I really have no idea, but I can assure you it is a lot. And their flexibility and all the work they did to engage the legal services community is really appreciated. And the same for the people that were on the working group. Tony and Amin devoted endless hours to participating not only in working group discussions, but participating and listening to what the community had to say, refining the rules, and all of that. And their time, I mean, they're volunteers, and I know they both have very busy jobs. So just wanted to acknowledge the hard work that we did. And then I will also say that coming into this as a new commission member, a new rules committee member might feel like a little overwhelming because there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of public comment. I just want to also say that there's been, as I mentioned a minute ago, a lot of public engagement with QLSPs and support centers about the rules. There were opportunities for the Legal Aid and Support Center community to provide comment way in the fall. And then the rules initially were to be considered by the committee in November, and that was postponed because of a large number of public comments, and the working group had then additional discussions, and there were additional focus groups held. Some of the members of the working group were able to attend both of those, and then some additional refinements. And I think just the comments generally I'll make is we did hear a lot about how one size of a change in a rule might not work for everyone. And the result for that, under particularly the qualifying use of funds, was to build flexibility into the rule where it didn't have to be just a numeric test, but instead could also allow for a qualitative short explanation. No one is asking that someone submit a memo, but a few sentences about how that training served the legal services community or why it's a niche practice area. That means it wouldn't be possible to get sort of a number of programs attending a training. So those kinds of flexibility. And the same thing with out-of-state work, not intended to say that you can't do out-of-state work, but simply identify the benefit in a short statement. And I think the memo gave an example of that, such as the majority of immigrants in the United States live in California, and that makes clear the benefit that's happening, and some other kinds of examples about Kim Turner was quite passionate about ensuring that precedent-setting work, like a case done in another state. I think someone gave an example in Washington, and if that's precedent-setting for California, how a short explanation would cover that. So just wanted to indicate that whether the committee got it right or not, the working group got it right or not, there was an intention to be thoughtful about the input we received and an intention to build in flexibility, recognizing that there are different ways that support centers do their work. and trying to accommodate those differences and to use this as an opportunity to better understand what support centers are doing and how that's benefiting indigent Californians and QLSPs. So with that, I will stop and turn it over to the amazing bar staff who have a presentation. And I think what we'll do is walk through the presentation and then have a discussion sort of rule by rule. I think some had very little public comment and some had more. So we really want to get a sense of where the committee is and any outstanding concerns that committee members have, and sort of through that process decide which portions of the rules are ready to move forward, all of them, some of them, none of them, etc. So thank you. And I think Erica and Kim are going to be sharing the presentation. So
thank you, Catherine. Quickly, I want to confirm, can everyone see my presenter view of the screen? Is that
we
Erica?
sure can.
Yes.
Erica, that's the proper view you're
Yes.
seeing. Okay, excellent. All right. I'll just situate us with the PowerPoint. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and attention today and your presence, your comments. Kim Turner, a senior program analyst with the Office of Access and Inclusion, joined. I'll let Erica introduce herself.
Thanks. Erica Carroll.
Oh, I think Erica paused for a second. Sorry, Erica, you paused for a second. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think my connection has been a little challenging at times. Just Erica Carroll, lead program analyst with the Office of Access and Inclusion, as well as the coordinator for this committee.
Thank you so much. All right. So we do have a couple slides today, and we will be walking through those and effectively trading off with our presentation. So I just wanted to first welcome you to this presentation on 5.1 and walk through the agenda that's about to be shared. So first, we'll do some introductions and process overview. And I look forward to our working group members who have really propelled these proposals to chime in wherever they like today, knowing we miss Amin and wish he could be here and understand his scheduling conflict, and so glad that Tony can join. And of course, Catherine and everyone who's been so helpful. We'll walk through quickly the topics that we're covering, which are also laid out in the memo. We're going to have time for each topic, talking a little bit about the proposed changes and provide additional background, and really make space for committee members to chime in and ask questions, because a lot is already contained in the memo. So we want to make time for the conversation. And then we have a draft resolution prepared for the end of the meeting regarding these proposed rule changes. So without further ado, if there's nothing more to add on the overall agenda, I'm going to advance to introductions and process overview and hand it to Catherine for some overview notes. Thank you.
So I think I did my overview notes just a bit ago, so I don't feel the need to repeat myself. Sorry for not focusing on where it was on the agenda.
No, that's no problem, Catherine. Thank you. We want the whole group watching and participating today to have a list view of our wonderful working group members who worked, as Catherine said, it was countless hours on these proposals. So they're all listed there. And we do want to underscore a couple of things. And Erica, of course, please chime in, and Tony as well, after I can just tick through these. But I did want to emphasize that there were focus groups on these rule amendments convened in August and December. There were two groups for each of those rounds in August and December, and every single support center and QLSP was invited to those 4 collective focus groups. And in that process, particularly in December, all the rule text that is contained in the memo was shared with anyone who wanted to examine it in December. And then written comments have been submitted both in October, after rules were circulated in a September memo to LAC, and then in this last couple of days, of course, we've received more comments that we passed on to the working group and committee members. I think I'll defer a little bit to Erica because she's going to be going into the timeline specifics, but you can see the timeline for rule application, with rules becoming effective in 2027 and fully taking place in the 2029 cycle, where grantees apply for funds in 2028. And as Catherine noted, there is a forthcoming handbook discussed in the memo, which would aid in providing the additional information that we know a lot of grantees are interested in. But we felt that in the memo, I know the working group understood that they couldn't cover every possibility, every hypothetical in the memo, and that is partly why the handbook would create even more clarity. And then staff, I know folks know, but the staff of OA&I spend a lot of time doing technical assistance with grantees and really care deeply about the grantees' work and know how vital it is with support centers and QLSPs. And so staff would conduct continuing efforts to provide technical assistance, which we do each day, and we're resolved to continue doing. Many of us having worked in QLSPs or support centers in the past, for example, we very much know how important the work is, how hard it is, and how much we want it to continue. So I will, unless Tony, did you want to add anything more on overview? And welcome, Tony. We're so glad our working group member could be here.
Nothing more to add. Thank you.
Okay.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I know, Amin.
Kim, can I just say one thing, which was, I think with the handbook, the intention is to engage the legal services community in the development of the handbook, just as a further way to clarify the examples that are in the memo, but to add additional examples, etc. So is that correct? Yeah.
It's a village. We're a village here at OA&I, so I won't speak for the whole group. But I do think that consultation, or at least incorporation of grantee perspectives as that handbook evolves is, I imagine, quite important. So I don't know, Joyce or Erica, if you have more to
absolutely. I think that's right. If we're trying to look at the application of the rules to sort of real life situations, we'll probably want to get, and we will get, feedback from the folks most impacted. So that's a great call out, Catherine. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Thanks, Catherine. Okay, I will pass it over to Erica. Erica, you ready for advancement to timeline?
Sure.
Thank you.
So just to give a little bit of background and context, particularly for our newer members, about the process. So codification has been ongoing for a number of years, and a lot of prior amendments to the rules have been QLSP focused. And so in 2025, we arrived at a point where we could turn attention to support centers. And so the Rules Committee wanted to take a more gradual approach to these, and has had sort of preview discussions, if you will, at prior meetings in 2025. So in May and August of last year in particular, we had presentations on the context and the background of the rules, and sort of some of the motivations for potential changes. And then, as Kim stated, in August, we held focus groups to talk about some tentative ideas or concepts regarding the changes. A memo was circulated in September with proposed rule amendments that included the full text of the proposed changes that went out through LAC to the legal aid community. We revisited, given some of the feedback in the fall, the rule changes, and so additional proposals were shared in December with specific text updates based on the feedback received. Today we're at the Rules Committee meeting on this topic, and then looking ahead, to the extent that any of these proposals are advanced today, the next step would be to take them to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission in March for release for public comment. Our standard public comment period is 45 days. And then after the public comment period, again, bring it back to the commission as needed for additional input, or take it to the Board of Trustees for approval. As Kim noted, given that some of these proposed changes would require changes in things like reporting requirements and data collection for support centers, the intent was to have a sort of a slower rollout in making the rules effective in 2027, so that grantees, support center grantees, would have the opportunity to make necessary updates to their systems rather than have the changes go into effect immediately. And if that were to happen, if the rules go into effect in 2027, they would be applicable to the 2029 ILT-EAF application cycle. Yes, Ken.
Can I just ask a process question on the timing? It seems to me, I mean, obviously there were a number of public comments made. We'll get to those in a few minutes. But if we were to decide not to go forward with so this timeline you have on your screen assumes that we are going forward with the entirety of the proposal that has been presented to us. If we do something different than that, what kind of timing would we be looking at that would still allow the rule to go into effect in 2027? In other words, when are there other Board of Trustee meetings, other full commission meetings that would allow for a 45-day comment period and still have a 2027 effective date?
Thank you for that question. I think that there are other opportunities during the year. So, for example, I believe the Board of Trustees, they have a meeting at the end of this month, they have a meeting in May, and then they'll have 2 additional meetings during the year. I want to say maybe July and November, sometime later in the fall. So, apologies, I don't know off the top of my head, but there are other Board of Trustees meetings at which we could take the rules to them. And we have 5 Rules Committee meetings this year. And so the next meeting is in April, and then there's another one, I believe, in June. And so there would still be time. It would happen later in the year, but in that sense, it would be even closer to the 2027 implementation timeline anyway. So there are opportunities to still circulate these before 2027 and have them go into effect at that point. I do want to note also that some of these rule changes I don't necessarily think would require grantees to change practice. And so they potentially could go into effect sooner if desired. Or, if the committee doesn't want to move forward unless all the rules are held together, we can hold something back until all of the topics are resolved. There's a few different ways to approach it. So if you want to sort of bifurcate some of the issues, we could do that. There are different paths forward to if the committee desires to still proceed on, at least some aspects of this work.
Got it. Thank you.
I guess I'll just pick up on one thread that you said. It's from listening to the public comment, there is a particular section where there was a lot of comments about permissible use of funds, but other areas such as providing an office through California has not ever received any comment, and some others very, very little comment. So a possibility is, and I think this will sort of on the natural happen during the full committee discussion today, of are there rules that are not without, that seem ready to go, and those could be voted on today, and then we'll decide whether the whole package moves at one time or not, but at least sort of conclude work that seems ready to be concluded, which I think will be helpful and allow a better focus in the areas where maybe there's some continuing concerns and need for additional thought. So that's just my thinking about an approach.
Patience.
Thanks. I wonder if it would be possible, I apologize for asking y'all to do this on the fly, to start with the issues that are likely to be non-issues.
Yes.
I counted 3673, of course, also 3675B2 and 3672 section C 1, 2, and 3 as being contested at the moment. And I wonder if we could focus our conversation initially and just speed right through, if possible, the rules besides those, the rules where there does not seem to be controversy. And either, I'm wondering how to streamline this so that we don't get bogged down early on.
Yeah, I think the first 2 rules you talked about are top of the agenda. And the other one, I think patience is the very last one. I don't have any objection to taking up the last one and then returning to the other 3 that you identified.
Well, actually, what I'm suggesting, the ones I mentioned are the ones where there's disagreement.
No, I know that. So I'm saying the other ones.
The other ones. Okay.
So the other ones, I was trying to identify that the other topics on the agenda already are at 1 and 2, I believe, are not the ones.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right. And the last
Perfect.
one. So I was just suggesting, I was actually agreeing with your approach. So let's just see if we can do that. So it'll be the first 2 are right in order already.
Right.
Not a problem to skip to do those first two and then skip to the last one.
Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be great.
Yeah, not a problem.
Thanks so much.
Yes, perfect timing in that our next slide, which I advanced to, given Patience's very helpful comment, is that there are 6 main topics. You can see here them laid out. I don't need to read the screen per se, but we're happy to handle topics 1 and 2 and 6. Priority setting, the number 6 topic, is also considered offering of legal support services. You might see it explained that way as well. So I'm happy to dive in if we're good with that ordering, and appreciate everyone's cooperation.
We are good. We're going to
Okay.
get through these, I hope, quickly.
Okay, great. So as noted, the California Office Rule Amendment pertains to Rule 3.670. We felt that, it was important to, part of the process, I should say, and the working group's intentions is to update the rules where there was, not just lacking clarity, but sometimes just literally not enough words for grantees and staff and stakeholders to follow along and be able to comply and adhere to the rules and the overarching business and professions code. So the code section 6213 discussed the requirement that support centers provide through an office in California a significant level of legal training, legal technical assistance, or advocacy support without charge, et cetera, on a statewide basis in California. And the working group endeavored to provide a bit more clarity. And I'll just flag that we did not include all of the rule text in these slides because we felt it would be too big of a slide to track, but in your materials, you have the red line rules. So anyone can look at the actual red line rules is probably the quickest and easiest place to see the changes. So in the short number of changes in 3.670, it's not a very long set of amendments. The working group sought to allow for flexibility because they realize that support centers nowadays are working both or in a tripartite way, in person, hybrid, and remotely, with models that really work across the board, but still maintain that California nexus. And so the rule focuses on a 1.0 full-time employee at the very least, providing legal support services, being physically located and working in California. There's a little bit more detail in the actual rule, but this is a high top-line summary. And the amendments are really ensuring that support centers remain connected to the realities of QLSPs in the state and enables them to coordinate work across California's legal services ecosystem. So it's not just that we understand the nexus is required, the IOLTA statutes also require that nexus. So as noted, we did not have a whole lot of commentary about this rule change in our 4 sessions in August and December with the grantees and then in other junctures. And we did provide a lot of different on-ramps and portals for feedback throughout, frankly, the last year of this work. So if there are any questions or comments from committee members or working group members, that is really the summary of our California office amendments.
You're talking about comments from commission members, right?
Yes, committee members, rules committee members, commissioners. Yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yes.
So does any commissioner want any discussion or have any comments about this particular change?
I move that we forward this change to the commission so that it can go out for public comment.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ken.
Great. I'll take roll. Thank you. Alsaroff. Babcock.
Yes.
Wong.
Yes.
Milrod.
Yes.
Morales. Sandville.
Yes.
Blakemore.
Yes.
5 yeses, no nos. The motion carries.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to intercede at the wrong time, but I will advance when Catherine is chair and Erica's committee coordinator are ready to our primary purpose rule 3.671.
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Thanks for asking, Kim.
Thank you. All right, to Erica on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next rule 3.671 addresses primary purpose and function. So under the statute, under 6213B of the Business and Professions Code, we've historically treated eligibility for support centers as a 2-part test, that they have to have a primary purpose and function of legal training, legal technical assistance, and advocacy support without charge. and then they have to have a significant level of services to QLSPs on a statewide basis. So focusing on that first part, the primary purpose and function test, the purpose of the amendments, which were minor, are intended to be clarifying. So language was added to this rule, just indicating that services are for QLSPs and other entities that provide free civil legal services. So to Selena's comment earlier about really drawing that distinction between primary purpose and permissible use of funds, it was intended to demonstrate that establishing primary purpose is a broader inquiry. You can provide services to a variety of organizations or entities to establish that primary purpose. It's not solely focused on QLSPs. And so the edits to that rule were really explicit in that regard. And so it is not intended to change the practice or the meaning of the rule by any means. It is intended to just set expectations and clarify the rule. So really don't have many other comments on that, as it was sort of a limited edit, but happy to answer questions if any.
Are there any comments or questions for Erica?
I move this rule be forwarded to the commission for approval and dispersing it or sending it out for public comment.
Is there a
And I'll second.
Thank you, Ken.
Alsaroff? Babcock?
Yes.
Wong?
Yes.
Milrod?
Yes.
Morales? Sandville?
Yes.
Blakemore?
Yes.
The motion carries. Okay. And then I think we will skip ahead, Kim, to the last, the sixth topic, the priority setting.
There you go.
Great, thank you. And so establishing priorities, it is currently a requirement under eligibility guidelines for support centers that they are engaging in priority setting practices where they take into account the interests, the needs, the desires of QLSPs and other legal service providers. And so since those are in the eligibility guidelines, part of the codification effort has been to bring language from eligibility guidelines into the rules to establish clarity and kind of contain the governing authorities and fewer, sources so that folks don't have to look around for all aspects of the requirements. So this change would have support centers conduct the priority setting inquiry on at least every 3-year basis. This kind of aligns it with our monitoring cadence, which happens every 3 years, and would provide flexibility to support centers in the ways that they want to gather the information to establish their priorities. And so it's actually, I think the cadence is less frequent than what's currently required in the guidelines, although of course they are welcome and encouraged to do it as often as needed to be responsive to QLSP needs and to the needs of indigent Californians. But it's intended to enhance connections between QLSPs and support centers and really encourage that dialogue and engagement. And so as noted here on the slide, surveys, convenings, direct consultations, various forms of input are permissible in terms of establishing those priorities and demonstrating that they are in line with QLSP priorities. So again, happy to answer questions on this, but that was the intent of the amendment to the rule.
I'll just say, I think one of the outdated language requirements was in the current guidelines, the organization support centers board had to approve the priorities that they had worked out with the support center. So that requirement is not continued over. So that's just an example of what outdated language is being referred to. I think Selena has a comment.
Just a very quick comment that a prior version of this had included annual priority setting, and we really appreciate switching it to 3 years. And I heard that actually more frequently from QLSPs that they did not want to work with 22 support centers on an annual basis. So I think the 3 year is the right match. It's asking them to work with QLSPs, but not, 22 support centers reaching out to every QLSP every year. So this is a great.
I think I think that's another example of the current guidelines require annual priority setting. And so State Bar staff, after the first set of focus groups, heard that that was a burden and proposed the 3 years. So I think there's agreement about that being the right period of time. Any comments from Rules Committee members?
Move that we forward this on and get it out into the world so it can go into effect. Good job, everybody. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of Donnybrook with the rest of it, but I just really want to thank the staff and the work group. Thanks.
Okay, is there a second to patient's motion?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Jonathan. You got it.
Okay, Jonathan, a second, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Alsaroff, Babcock,
Yes.
Wong,
Yes.
Milrod,
Yes.
Morales, Sandville,
Yes.
Blakemore.
Yes.
5 yeses, no nos. The motion passes. So I think after covering those topics, we can kind of return to the order of the others. The remaining topics are the definition of legal support services, the permissible use of funds, and the significant level in statewide services aspect. So unless there's desire to go in a different order, I think we'll just run through the order they are in the presentation.
I think that'll just make it easier in terms of the slides. So that's great.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. I'm happy to jump into this one. All right, so this slide concentrates on the proposed amendments to Rule 3.672, which encompass the legal support services offered by support centers. And the current rule, or the 3.672 as it stands right now, it has very sparse detail about exactly what would fall into those buckets around legal training, legal technical assistance, and advocacy support. So the working group endeavored to add more detail, more clarity to what are indeed in those different buckets, and then also offer the necessary flexibility, understanding that support centers really do vary in their models and their offerings, and recognizing that each one functions a little bit differently and also interacts a little bit differently with QLSPs. So essentially, and again, I would encourage you to look at your red line rules in the attachments to see what has been expanded and added. But basically the amendments, the working group wanted to account for specialized legal knowledge. And we heard in some of the commentary, for example, on family law or certain niche area practices of law that not all QLSPs would cover or be interested in, but are still very important. So the amendments account for that. We've discussed the handbook, but it would, again, in this instance, provide more context and examples to make sure that grantees are clear on what's eligible or ineligible, knowing that, the memo, for example, and the rules themselves can't add all the ineligible and eligible activities in one long list. So we want to be pragmatic about that. And then the working group also incorporated through August and December focus groups and prior letters received input in all sorts of ways, which of course we can't get into every detail now about, the back and forth. We had some really productive sessions in August and December with dozens of grantee representatives about what their work is like day to day, those on the ground realities. And I know the working group was very, very interested in hearing those realities and being, empathetic about them as a staff. And then finally, we just do want to underscore, and we've heard this in the comments as well, this is a very hard time. obviously for nonprofits and legal services in the country. And we recognize the importance of the work being done and very much want it to continue. So a lot of these details that are added in 3.672 are not intended as any type of sea change, but intended to support and just provide more clear contours to these 3 buckets of work. So those are some top line notes that we want to share on behalf of the working group. We're happy to discuss the rules in detail with regard to those 3 buckets. And Catherine and Erica, if you want to add anything more to contextualize this rule set of amendments, that's fantastic.
I mean, I'll point out, like, one of the original concerns with the rule was that it didn't separate out legal skills or knowledge, right? And they're really 2 different kinds of things. And so that those were separated. You don't have to do both in the same activity. So that is an example of one of the kind of responsive changes. I think the concern I remember from the public comment isn't actually addressed in the rule. It is a example in the memo that talked about certain activities being examples of ineligible work, which was training about human resources systems and accounting systems, I think, and Lee Farron is the person that raised that concern. And so I guess we should discuss whether there were other examples or concerns with that. And a possibility is to remove that example and let the handbook discussion sort of better define what that is and not prejudge what the appropriate outcome would be. But can I see your hand up?
Yeah, Catherine, I think if my notes are correct, and they might not be, because there were a lot of people talking and giving very excellent public comment. I think there was potentially one change in the language of the rule in addition to the change in the memo that you mentioned, and that is on page 19 of the red line version under section C2, in that first sentence defining legal technical assistance. I think Lee said that towards the end of that sentence where it says indigent persons and their ability to provide quality civil legal services, that if you replace that with an or, that might allow some of that capacity building type activity that she was referring to and that is referred to as some of the ineligible things that I agree with you ought to be changed in the memo.
Okay, so I see at least in the attachment, I don't know.
Attachment A, yeah.
Attachment, okay, I'm looking at the wrong one because I have attachment B, but it doesn't really matter because they're the
Yeah,
same.
yeah, right. I'm looking at the red line version.
Okay.
And I sort of have a process question here. I don't know if we want to actually wordsmith here in the committee, or if there's too much wordsmithing, do we get to a point where we say, well, let's just hand it back to the working group?
So I think, Ken, like if there are changes that we can make and agree to, and it would allow like the definitions to move, this definition part to move forward, then I think we can do it here. So far, I've heard a change in the memo, and I've heard a change. Thank you for reminding me about that. And I guess I'm interested in knowing from staff about changing the actual rule from and to or. Do you have thoughts about that?
Can I just add one note, because I appreciated one justice's comment, and we understand the vitality of their services and offerings to strengthen our legal services community at large. We did speak in the focus groups at different junctures about the type of work that one justice and others do, and I do want to flag that I think the phrase capacity building activities was focused upon in our process, in the working groups process, which is in the legal training section of C1 right now. But, effectively, and Erica, please chime in, and working group members, but we understood that, an unlawful detainer training on the phases of an unlawful detainer litigation is a very kind of literal and obvious, say, legal training. But talking about how to recruit and retain law students to work in legal services organizations is a little more maybe ancillary to like the conventional legal training. So I just want to flag that capacity building activities, I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall us discussing that being a way to get at that activity where you're doing something that's not exactly like talking about going to court, talking about taking a deposition. So I don't know, Eric, if you want to add to that, but I think there's room here for accommodating these questions and thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Kim, for that, for noting that. And to the prior question about whether to make the edits now, or I think that historically the committee has at times made edits during the meeting, especially if they feel like they are targeted enough to be able to, responsibly make that edit and move it forward without creating new implications, for example, or things that would need to be examined. But if it's a larger text edit, I think typically that's when the committee will refer things back to the working group to revisit and review, because as has been discussed at length today about sort of the careful consideration that's already gone into this process, we wouldn't want to undo that unintentionally. So
I think at the moment for the rule, Ken reminded us of one request for a change. I think the question, so it seems, I guess the question I was asking staff was, from a staff perspective, is the change that Ken brought to our attention based on the comment that so the change would be legal technical assistance enhances the legal skills or knowledge of the staff of the Qualified Legal Services Project and/or other entities providing free legal services to indigent persons. And right now it says, and their ability to provide, and the request was to change that to or their ability to provide. And I think it's really a construction question of do both have to be present, meaning it's or other entities providing free legal services, civil legal services to indigent persons and their ability to provide quality, or or acceptable. So like you all have to, you are all the implementers of what we decide. And I think just your advice about whether that change is okay, would be welcome if you have an opinion.
If I might just, and Patience has her hand raised. Patience, do you want to go ahead and then I could kind of address part of your question, Catherine?
Sure. Patience, did you have a comment?
I actually go ahead and finish this line of thought, and then I'm looking at one justice's letter that's attached to the memo at pages, what is this? The PDF pages 80 and 81, 82. And it's more than just changing one and to one or. And so that's worthy of some conversation. So that I'll raise my hand again when you guys are.
We'll call on you even without you raising your hand.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, Erica, please chime in. But we had many working group meetings and focus groups about these items. And so another point I want to kind of convey or share as we're facilitators of this is that there was discussion in C2 around legal technical assistance about enhancing the legal skills or knowledge of the staff of QLSPs. And, I recall also discussion around that enhancement notion, which is not always a literal and direct type of technical assistance. Like we can see how, for example, reviewing a pleading is very direct, but to enhance legal skills and knowledge, we understood that one justice, for example, does work to enhance legal skills and knowledge and wanted to build, I think the working group very much wanted to build in that opening. So maybe to Catherine's point, I wonder if the example in the memo versus the rule itself might get at this question and comment. I just want to raise that as a notion, is that maybe the language is broad enough. It's the example that in the memo that might be.
Yeah, I think there's I'm hearing I'm hearing from a couple of people. We can check in with everyone else in the committee that removing that example and leaving to the handbook discussion sort of examples that the bar staff can work on and get feedback from the community makes sense because I think there was concern about the example. That doesn't really get to is the rule enough? And maybe where we'll just leave it at the moment is to go back to Patience and see if she wanted to raise any other questions about these definitions. And then we can see where we are, whether we can agree or whether it'll go back to a working group.
So I can see why people will get their hair on fire a little bit about the example in the memo because it emphasizes.
We've resolved
I know,
that, I think.
but
Yeah,
but
okay.
let me just finish my thought.
Sure.
The example focuses on or appears to require that this be training about statutes or more legal skills. And if I were a support center ED, I would be going, oh my goodness, this is how they intend to interpret C1. So it's as a flag or a signal about what it is that's required here. Thank you. I'm really happy that we don't have to fight about whether that example comes out. But one of the other things that could happen is to clarify C1 and either take out the word legal for training. I mean, honestly, when I was at CCLS, we so relied on one justice's sort of nuts and bolts administrative competence training. I mean, and none of us went to law school so we could be administrators. There was a whole lot that we didn't know. Certainly, I didn't know, and it was necessary for me to do the job for our clients that the state bar expects me to do. For me to get training, I did not need legal training per se, but I did need to understand. I mean, I run a pretty good meeting already, but I did need to understand other things about like how to run a program. So those things that one justice does, I think would be valuable to look at them as exemplars of the kind of training that ought to be readily, obviously permissible under this rule. And part of the problem right now is that it's not. I want to point out also that if more of this training were available, the burden on staff to do technical assistance could be reduced. So it is the kind of thing we want to encourage. And I really think it's the kind of thing the state bar should be paying for, so that it shouldn't be on trust fund staff to teach the rest of us, how to be administrators when we've been lawyers all our lives. So there are a couple of ways to do that. You could take out legal out of training. You could do you could divide training into two parts, legal and capacity building. I mean, there's a variety of ways to clarify it, but I think it would be really valuable to clarify it.
So Patience, could I just ask one question of the staff? So in the statute, does it say legal training, or do we recall?
It says provision of legal training, legal technical assistance, or advocacy.
So I feel like, what we try to, that was my recollection, is that the statute says legal training, and we try to work around that to say legal training could be legal education, or we didn't insert the word legal capacity building, but capacity building. So it was a working group effort to recognize exactly what you're saying, that there is something different than legal training within a statutory framework, and that's called capacity building.
So it would be very valuable to be explicit about that and break down, like under one, you'd have a sub A that says, training, legal training includes, I don't know, deposition training, whatever. And B, legal training also includes capacity building to ensure that grantees are efficiently use state bar money for the benefit of their client communities. There's 17 different ways to say it, but distinguish between the two, but acknowledge the capacity building. The state bar needs to pay for that.
So I think we agree. I think my question is whether that level of detail belongs in the rule or in the memo. So we may just disagree with that because I think that's what this rule says. And we probably, if there's a desire to discuss some further clarification in the rule, then I think it has to go back to a working group that's going to wrestle with these because I think it's too complicated here to do it. But I just wanted to be clear, like we have it is called legal training and we're statutorily, that's the word. And this was an attempt, I think at one time it actually said legal education and capacity building. And the community feedback was they didn't want the and, instead it should be or, so it was separate. And I think it's fine as it is, but that's really for this committee to decide whether it requires additional work.
I want to add one thing, and that is, it wasn't clear to one justice. So even though the committee, the work group knew what it meant, and I don't disagree that I think that's a perfectly reasonable interpretation of it. But what I have found in my exposure to these discussions about rules is that the staff is so fabulous that we just sort of assume that the right thing will happen because staff work so hard and they're so committed and they are mission driven. And that may not always be the case. So to the extent it's not explicit, that creates problem for the people who are who've got to deal with it later. And so I'm in favor of things being more explicit and less reliant on the good graces of other people, specifically staff. So that's just.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of, I think our staff is fabulous and I agree with everything you said about them. I think the appropriate place to clarify this is in the handbook rather than make the rules so much longer. But I think it seems like, I guess I'll ask whether Tony, Ken, or Jonathan have an opinion about this rule because I do want to be mindful of the time that we have remaining so we can at least have a discussion about that. Selena, before I get to you, I'm going to see if anybody on the committee has a comment.
I think I would favor this going back to the work group for some more consideration. I think something in between no examples in the rule and some examples in the rule would be appropriate. And I think once people have some experience in dealing with these rules once they're adopted and with the handbook that will be adopted, there'll be more of a comfort level as to the things that are allowable and the things that aren't allowable. And there's just a tremendous uncertainty right now in the community because they're hoping that this all gets interpreted in the way that everyone intends it to be interpreted, and it's not punitive, and it's allowing flexibility for programs so they can continue to do the good work that they're doing. I do think adding a little more certainty in the rule by the way of some exemplars wouldn't be a bad idea, and I think that's something that ought to be wrestled with at a work group level.
Yeah, and you should, I think there will be a work group. I don't know that the people that have participated so far are up to continuing, but we will see who is on the working group. Okay, Jonathan or Tony?
No, I think Ken pretty much nailed it, but I want to hear what Selena, the comment that she was going to make, since her hand was up as well.
Let's do it.
I just want to get on stack. I have two very quick comments, assuming that this does go back to a working group. One is in the proposed language under C3A Roman numeral 2 around the referral issue. I think this has gotten a lot cleaner and a lot easier for support centers to manage. The part that I did hear from organizations is about the request must be documented and include the explanation for why the QLSP's involvement and the referring organization's inability to handle the matter. And says this should include I think that may be too much information because the support center may not know why the QLSP referred to them and not to someone else. It may be that the QLSP trusts the support center to actually pick up the phone, answer the email, and take the client, especially if it's an urgent issue. So I don't know that you need that additional information. So I would suggest that the working group consider that clause. And my other request is if this goes back to working group for more examples to include in a handbook, to really focus on some technology trainings that our community has been doing. I know that Jennifer Zelnick at the bar has been doing a lot of legal technology trainings. I know Support Center, I think yesterday or maybe even today, did a training. And it would be really helpful to include that there are a lot of technology trainings that are capacity building trainings. It's not how to use Excel, but it is, incorporating AI into your case management. So that was my only 2 comments.
Thank you, Selena. Anybody else on the committee have a comment? Okay, I hear a consensus, not you, maybe. Tony, did you have something to say? I'm so sorry.
No, yeah. I was gonna wait to see if Jonathan wanted to respond to Selena before I raised my hands. But I just wanted to comment on, because I was part of the working group that helped to put this together, and we had extensive conversations whether or not it was appropriate to include examples or not. And the end decision was that we would include that in the what did we call it? Guide book.
The handbook,
Sorry. A handbook. Yeah, the handbook. But then I'm hearing that people want examples in the rule itself, but I also want to run the caveat of, like, people want to feel that a level of comfort that that rule like doesn't negatively impact them. But then when we put examples in there, it helps solidify it for some, but then it still leaves it hanging for a lot of others. So I don't think it really addresses it won't address everybody's concern. So I just want to kind of put that out there that we will do our best, whoever the role committee is, if you accept me, we'll do our best to look at that and to revise that, to put examples in, but it's not all inclusive and some people may feel left out, but that doesn't mean that the rules could negatively impact them either once the handbook is out.
Yeah, thanks for that wisdom, Tony. Appreciate it. Jonathan, did you have any other comments?
No.
Thank you. So I think what I started to say, and really appreciate Tony you weighing in as well. Like, I don't think it's possible to address this rule and move it forward. So I think it is an example of a rule that will go back to a working group and come back to the committee at some, I guess, as Erica pointed out, we have meetings in a number of other future times, April and July or something. So let's just decide that that's what we're doing by consensus and move on to the next item so that we have the opportunity to get through. I think there's 2 other pretty significant rules that we should have get some feedback from.
Thank you. Just managing the slides. Erica, anything else you want to add? And then we can pick which topic the committee wants to go to next.
I think we're just going to the next one. We're just staying in order.
Okay.
As you recommended. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
So this is
welcome.
permissible use of funds, and turning it to Erica. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Erica, really fast. I did want to just maybe while we're all together, I just wanted to flag. It sounds like, so I understand as well, 3.672 would go back to working group.
That's what we just decided.
Okay, and it would, and I think just so the committee understands that it's not presumed who's in that working group right now, right?
I also said that.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. 3.673. Thanks, Erica.
Sure. So turning to the permissible use of funds question, this is the rule 3.673 that a majority of commenters wanted to focus on. And so this goes to permissible use of state bar funds. This is expanding on or interpreting the part of the statute that says that state bar funds, IELTA and EAF specifically, should be used only for the provision of civil legal services within California, and also that it should only be used for qualified legal services projects. So the proposed rule changes, there was one aspect that is indicating for things like trainings that a majority of attendees would need to be from QLSPs and in order to use state bar funding for the activity. And if that's not possible or it doesn't happen, that there are a few other options in order to still use the state bar funding. So one would be to provide a narrative explanation as to how this is for the benefit of QLSPs, how they're impacted by the use of the funds. Even in the absence of majority, we had a lot of feedback, for example, and I think we heard some of that today, that some support centers do work that is highly specialized and may not really have the same reach for the 90 plus QLSPs the way some others might if they're more general in nature, but that their specialized work is really beneficial to the QLSPs that do that same type of work. And so the narrative explanation was intended to be responsive to those realities or those concerns that were raised. And again, in the absence of being able to demonstrate that, all of the activity should be funded with state bar funds, there's always an option to do a pro rata apportionment. So as I think Catherine has stated throughout, the working group's intention was to provide flexibility in the way that this was applied. While still kind of having accountability in the use of the dollars. This again is a distinction between use of state bar funds versus primary purpose. We're talking about use of funding that is received. It's more narrow. It's for QLSPs. It's not the same as the primary purpose inquiry, which allows services to a wider audience. That is the activity recipient aspect of the permissible use of funds. There's another portion or section to this rule, but I don't know if we want to break it up because that next section has to do with out-of-state work, and so it's sort of two different.
I think we should go through them all, and then because I think the comments were pretty similar about both of them, and we'll decide if we can find a path to agree about something or if it's going to go back. So if you could just continue, that'd be great.
Sure. And then the second aspect of the proposed rule change has to do with out-of-state work. So amendments that would allow for the use of state bar dollars outside of California for work that does have a clear nexus to benefiting indigent Californians or supporting the work of QLSPs. I think in the comments today, you heard real examples of work that's done outside of the state that, either at the federal level or out of state, but with an intention for it to have practical implications in California. And the working group was cognizant of some of those examples when working on the rule change. And so just wanted to reiterate that the emphasis was to provide flexibility. They're showing, again, that the majority of those impacted are either in the state of California or that there is a reasonable basis for engaging in the work, even if it's outside of the state, to have that tie back to the state. Again, in terms of having accountability in the use of the dollars, it is not intended to stop the work that's already being performed. And I think the examples that were given today were great in illustrating how there is that connection. And so this rule change would have those variable options to demonstrate the impact in California. So it would either be quantitative, a narrative explanation, or a pro rata share, just as it would with the activity question for the first part of the rule.
Okay, comments or discussion? Patience, and then Ken.
I guess with both of these, the permissible use of funds in California only work. I'm wondering, what is the perceived problem that this language is attempting to solve? Number one. Number two, when you allow for qualitative explanations, then you have of necessity idiosyncratic and subjective interpretations of those qualitative explanations. And if I were on the grantee side, it would make me nervous to feel like I had to explain myself. And I don't see, I mean, so the examples, of course, that we have in the letters are all the examples that make it clear that this is not necessary. So I guess it would be helpful to understand, like, in what world is it necessary to impose these restrictions, and that's number two. And then number three, I don't disagree that the word only, it does a lot of work here. And in both the statute and in the proposed rule changes. And I think we really ought to all get on the same page about what the legislature meant. And I would respectfully suggest that the reason Sergeant Shriver and God made legal aid was to do impact work, to do national work, to do important work. And let's not do anything that tends to constrain our brave lawyers in these programs who are making a difference. So that's it.
Ken?
So I have the same concerns and questions that patients so ably articulated. Just a couple of additional thoughts. I think that what we end up doing, and some of the written comments pointed this out with respect to the multiple beneficiaries of activities, particularly trainings, you're going to encourage programs to guess at a certain point because they're just not going to know. I mean, a lot of the comments talked about the burden that would be placed on programs, and I do think that burden could be significant if people really try to drill down and figure out how many of the beneficiaries of a particular activity were QLSPs and how many weren't. But I also think at a certain point, because we're allowing this qualitative analysis, that people are just going to guess at it. And I think that's particularly the case with respect to out-of-state work. I mean, there is some out-of-state work where there's really no way that you could ever come up with a figure that quantitatively described. And so, yeah, we've got the language in there about qualitative support for that. But like I say, at a certain point, we're just encouraging people to guess. And I would go back to Patience's first comment. What's the perceived problem? I mean, do we really think that there is a huge number of support center activities that are using IOLTA funds that are related to people in other parts of the country and that have no nexus whatsoever with California? I don't think that's really the case. Or at least it hasn't been demonstrated to me that that's the case.
So, Erica?
Thanks. I just wanted to perhaps address some of the questions that have been raised. One is in terms of support centers, in contrast to QLSPs, they don't have to be incorporated in California, and many support centers do operate outside of the state, and some of them, the way they do that is at the federal level, but others, they operate in other states that may or may not have a connection to California. And I think, again, going back to that distinction between the permissible use of funds versus primary purpose, that I think it's been acknowledged that even some support centers sometimes conflate the two. And so wanting to ensure that there is a focus and accountability in the use of the dollars for the benefit of QLSPs was some of the motivation. I think also in terms of data collection, while understanding that this would increase some administrative burden, the amount of data that we have on support centers and their activities compared to QLSPs is different. We don't have as much information on support center activities. And so I think some of this effort was to actually increase our understanding and our knowledge about what support centers are doing. in a meaningful way, aside from summaries of the work. And so, I hear some of the questions that are being asked, and I think this would be a hypothetical. I'm not saying that this has happened with a specific support center, but if you're saying something like a training intended for QLSPs, but then you have no QLSP attendees, but the money was spent using state bar dollars, would that then be a permissible use of the funds if it didn't actually, ultimately benefit QLSPs? Again, not saying that this has actually happened, but I think that's maybe one very specific example that one could entertain in terms of looking at the motivations behind some of the amendments. But happy to turn it back to Kim and Catherine for any other comments on that.
I think Ken has.
Well, I would agree, Erica, that example you gave is an example of where we wouldn't allow that as a permissible use of funds. I also thought the example that Judge Seligman came up with, where let's say you had a training and because of the number of non-QLSP attendees, you had to rent additional space, that might be an instance where you wouldn't allow those funds, you wouldn't consider that a permissible use of funds. But I think that just what we have right now, and maybe again, this will be fleshed out in the handbook sufficiently, it just creates a lot of uncertainty, and it creates either an incentive to sort of overanalyze for a purpose that I'm not really sure we need, or to guess. And I'm not sure either one of those is a really good alternative.
So I think the question is, given that there's different from QLSPs that report a lot of data to the state bar on an ongoing basis, there's very little support center data. And it's in some ways challenging, I think, to craft a rule that, like when you don't have current data, that helps you understand what's going on. So the flexibility in part, as Erica was saying, as I understand it, would provide more information about what out of state work and how does it benefit, or allow the flexibility for training about like who is attending the training and why, if you're a niche program. I mean, I agree that if you're doing, say, domestic violence work, there are very few programs that do that, QLSP programs that do that work. And to say you would have to have a majority of all the programs attending your training isn't really doable, because most of them don't practice in that area. And so the handbook was designed to explain that you wouldn't need to have your numbers start from the 100 programs that there are, but instead the 10 programs that did that work. So those are the kind of nuances, I think, that staff was trying to help the working group noodle through about. And that doesn't mean like it's ended up in a place that actually achieves that. I point that out because I think it's hard to craft something that gets at the challenges that Erica talked about, and that can be clear in a rule. So patience. You are on mute.
Thanks. Yeah, I know. So if the concern is what are these support centers doing, and we certainly got lots of information about what they're doing, it is if the need is for data about their activities, I can imagine a world in which the state bar, some designated mailbox, is included in every announcement of a training. The materials from the training get dumped in that mailbox. I mean, there's a lot of ways to collect information that are not about, if you know to whom the invite went out, an effort was made to include QLSPs, people either attend or not. But you're not putting some kind of onus on the support center itself to start counting beans after the fact which is challenging and in a lot of ways not such a good idea. So I don't think, if the real issue is data, like what are you up to? What are you doing with our money? I don't think that would be a hard question to answer. And that question, these rules do not answer that question. These rules are not about what are you doing. They are about who's benefiting from your work. And that question is, on one hand, as long as it benefits one Californian and it doesn't cost anymore, what do you care? Especially given when you do the cost benefit analysis, it's really a hassle to try and suss out, how many of the people that attended this Zoom training were, whoever. So it seems to me if the issue is what are they up to, that's one thing. If the problem is, I really do have a problem with, we're doing nationwide work on immigration, on an immigration related issue, but we're only going to get 22% of our expenditures reimbursed because only 22% of the immigrant population is in California. That's a problem too. So it doesn't seem that the solution is well tailored to the identified problem. And I would be interested in seeing something different.
I got that. So I do want to just clarify, if you provide under this rule, a qualitative explanation that this benefits California because the majority of immigrants in the nation live here, and you've done a comment letter, you've done litigation, etc., there is no expectation that you would then do a pro rata share. You at that point would have established that it benefits Californians and you can fully qualify that work. So I don't think we should conflate those two things. That's the comment I have, and we don't need to engage in a back and forth. I just don't want there to be a misunderstanding of at least the intent and what I think the rule says. But what I'm also going to say is it seems evident there isn't agreement. And I think we should just have a working group look at this and identify what the rule could say and proceed accordingly. I don't think we're going to get there today unless a committee member has some brilliance that I haven't yet discovered. Okay. So Selena, we're going to move on. Did you have something to say about this, or?
Just a request that if the working group looks at this issue, that they also consider the timing of when the handbook is released, because we've talked a lot about a handbook and additional information. And if it's released significantly after the rules, then we'll have more questions. So just, I guess, more guidance to the community about when the handbook will come out.
Okay. Okay. Is there one more rule that we need to go through, or? Okay.
Yes.
Did that. So let's do that one. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. All right. So significant level, I'm going to speak to this, and of course, please, committee members, commissioners, Erica, everyone, chime in. So this regards Rule 3.675, significant level. We are looking here at how prior to this conversation or currently, the rules require 10 static touch points between support centers and QLSPs, which is really clarified mostly in the guidelines. And, I know many are very deep into the rules and the guidelines, but for those who might be newer to it, support centers follow eligibility guidelines, which have been around a number of years, and contain some of this guidance, which is now being imported into these new rules or these amended rules. So 10 static touch points is the current threshold. And the idea is that with a growing QLSP community, which it has grown, that remains static. So if we have a percentage, the working group felt that a new threshold, a percentage of 20% touch points with QLSPs is a workable and alternative means, or rather a workable means to show there's this necessary interaction to demonstrate that support centers are indeed providing legal support services to QLSPs. under the statute as well. And then secondly, there is a provision in the rule that provides flexibility, and you're hearing that throughout this meeting, is that I think the working group tried very hard at various junctures to provide flexibility when, for whatever reason, providing legal support services to 20% of the QSPs is difficult. Such as when you have a niche practice area, and we discussed in, I think it was over 10 working group meetings for these various topics, where they discussed, if you practice a very kind of small area of law that not many QSPs practice, and you're doing a legal training on that area of law, but not many QSPs would attend, the working group wanted to account for that. And so developed a narrative explanation part of the rule where they could show that indeed still a significant level of support is being offered. And then, the impetus, and I know there's been discussion about like what are the kind of reasons or what are the motivations for some of these rule changes. And here, their working group was motivated to ensure that there's meaningful interaction and tailoring between support center, legal support services, and QSP work with QSP input and a back and forth and exchange. The rule amendments also permit support centers to count distinct office locations of a single QSP. There was a lot of discussion about how some QSPs are very large and have different regional offices and hundreds of attorneys, whereas other QSPs might have just a very small handful, and that it doesn't have to be that you served unique QSPs per se. It could be just several satellite offices across the board with one QSP. And then the rule amendments permit support centers. I'm sorry, let me just finalize that comment or this set of comments by saying that initially the working group proposed in the September rule amendments that were circulated to LAC a 25% threshold. And that was reduced after feedback was received to 20% based on like feasibility conversations, because the working group was very interested in knowing like what is achievable. And so that was brought down to 20%. There's obviously, again, more nuances, and we can look at the actual rule text in attachment A, but those are kind of the top line points. I want to make sure I got to all of them. Yes, I believe I have. Yeah, any questions or comments, and please, Catherine and Erica, if there's more, and Tony, more to add, please do.
Yeah, thanks for the summary of that. I thought you covered all the highlights. Patience? You're on mute again.
So this makes perfect sense to me. The only thing that got raised in the comments that makes it does seem we ought to address in the interests of certainty is what maps are you relying on, underserved and or rural county? There's probably 17 different definitions of that, depending on whether you're in the healthcare field or you're looking at CalEnviroScreen or whatever. So there just needs to be a definition, a concrete, like this is what we mean by this, use this, here's the link to see which, whatever. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. Or Erica, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we definitely recognize that there needs to be more specificity around that. And our office is working on coming up with a definition. This is the definition of rural, for example, or underserved is something that overlaps with a variety of our initiatives and work projects. And so we're trying to, across our office, come up with a uniform definition to be applied. But that is the intent, that we will be putting out a specific definition from which they can gauge if they are operating within the meaning or the intent of the rule.
Thank you, Erica.
Ken, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so two questions. In the title of the rule and in paragraph A, the word significant is used. In B2, the word substantial is used. Was that meant to be a differentiation between those two words, or did you mean to say significant and just somehow included substantial in B2?
Thank you, Ken. I'll chime in first and then pass it on to colleagues. But there was a lot of discussion about significant and substantial, and significant had been tied to those 10 touch points for a long time. is I think known in the support center community as a proxy or an indicator of those touch points. And then in terms of substantial and getting to 5 of 7, I guess there's, state bar districts, there's a map that we reference in B2 that support centers are familiar with. I have a very old fashioned copy in front of me. So the idea was that by hitting those 5 of 7 districts, state bar regions, that would be indeed substantial. And then I just flagged that the word substantial is used in other rules in the state bar rules and hadn't been an issue for grantees in terms of kind of understanding the plain language meaning of substantial, but completely understand your point. And the contrast and compare between significant and substantial. Erica, did you want to add more with the history on that?
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
And just one last question. Why 5 of 7 as opposed to 4 of 7 or some other?
I think actually that's a nice question, because I think it speaks to some of the working group intentions to in as many places as possible hew to what's working now and what's gone on for a long time. And support centers are really accustomed to the 5 of 7 regions map.
Okay.
And found it very feasible. And I think there was a lot of thought when this was issued in 2017 to making sure that if you hit those 5 of 7 regions, in fact, you were spanning your services statewide, which, as you note, there's so many different ways to compile these definitions. And so we just tried to find something practicable that support centers were already doing.
Got it.
Thanks. Selena?
Selena?
I only have a tiny comment on the rural piece, because I do think it's really challenging to serve a rural county. Many of the times support centers are providing services to the attorneys that serve the rural county, but the attorneys are sitting in Fresno, but they're serving clients throughout rural pockets of Fresno County. So I think that handbook definitely it'll need more attention. I know I was really active in the Access Commission's Rural Task Force, and we struggled with that, of how to get help to people who live in rural pockets when there aren't even attorneys there.
Yeah, so Selena, at least as I read the rule, it's provide support to legal support services for QLSPs. It doesn't speak to where the support center person is sitting, right? There's nothing that says that, and that wasn't the intention. You don't have to be the direct deliverer of services in that county. Your consultation with something that requires help to the QLSP, even if in Fresno, even though you're sitting in, name your other county, is fine. So that I think that's what, to me at least, what the rule says.
And I misspoke. I meant when the support center is serving the QLSP attorney may be sitting in Fresno, which Fresno, the city, is not rural, but Fresno County has rural pockets.
Yeah, that's yeah. Go ahead, Erica. Sorry.
I think that's something we can look at in terms of, especially acknowledging the increasing use of remote services or distant services that, incorporating into the examples about it being where the services are rendered, understanding that the brick and mortar location of the QLSP may be in one place, but the beneficiaries in terms of their ultimate client population may be elsewhere. And so I think taking into account where folks are actually being directly impacted in turn from the support to the QLSP is probably a reasonable basis, without sort of committing to that at this moment in time. But I think that that's something we would take into account when drafting the guidance. Yes.
And if I could also chime in, I think it's helpful for us at State Bar staff. We do a lot of monitoring visits, which are really meaningful and helpful to see how this work is conducted. And so I even had a recent visit with an attorney who was situated in one city, whereas her headquarters for her organization was in another city, and she was serving a whole different county and sometimes doing mobile trainings in yet another county. And I just want to flag that I think the staff and the working group, and I know the commissioners, are really cognizant about how the mobility of work is shifting constantly and wanting to be responsive to client and QLSP needs when they do shift. So I appreciate that point a lot. And also, Selena, And also the handbook is, because this is so much detail and there's so much complication to that very issue that Selena's raising, that I think the notion is that some of this could be fleshed out in the handbook in concert with grantee input.
Okay, so I think, I guess the question is, Ken, did you think there needed to be changes to the rule? Like,
No, I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay. So perhaps this is a rule we could approve and move forward, knowing that the clarifications will come in the handbook. It didn't seem like there was the same level of disagreement. So is there a motion to do that?
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
What's the timing on the handbook? The thing doesn't go into effect until the 29 grant cycle, but it'll be very helpful to know when the handbook will be available.
My understanding is that the handbook will be available before the rule goes into effect and done in consultation with the staff. Like it would be very hard for programs to effectively implement this without that kind of guidance. So that's my understanding. I guess our staff are here. If they think it won't be in effect by then, they should speak up. But I actually agree with the point that the handbook becomes a critical piece of successful implementation.
So with that understanding, then I move that we send this forward to the commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, let's do a roll call.
Alsteroff, Babcock,
Yes.
Wong. Did we lose Tony? Yep.
Oh, she's here.
Okay. Sorry, Tony, I'm not sure when maybe you dropped off, but we're taking roll on the significant level and statewide services piece. So
Yeah.
To move that forward, that roll forward.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I dropped off. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Milrod,
Yes.
Morales, Sandville,
Yes.
Blakemore.
Yes.
5 yeses, no nos. The motion carries.
Okay, so thanks for that discussion and moving that forward. And I think that is concluding the rules presentation for today, right?
Yes, I just want to flag too, and thank you, Ken, for moving toward the 5 of 7 regions. I didn't have a chance. I appreciate the rule section was loaded upon just now. That's fantastic. And I had, for those who are listening via audio but not visual, the slide up about the statewide section of 3.675. So I just want to thank you for combining those helpfully in the discussion. But yes, Catherine, I have the resolution up on the screen and defer to our committee coordinator.
I think I believe what we did was we voted on moving 3 or 4 rules forward already, and that we don't need there isn't really another resolution that we need to pass, because those that were not voted to move forward would be the ones that would return to the working group. And I think there's 3 that return to the working group. Is that right, Erica?
2.
2. Okay, 2.
Yes.
That's 3.672 back to the working group and 3.673 back to the working group.
Yes, I think I was just separating. I got to 3 because we talked about one of them in 2 different parts, but correct. It's only 1 rule. So there's 2 rules that return, and the others were moved forward in a series of motions, which I think was helpful to sort of take care of them at the time we were discussing them rather than trying to come back to it at the end. So that was a good suggestion from patients to do it that way. Okay, is there anything else you need us to do today?
Don't think so.
Do you want to take a moment to confirm? No, we're good?
No.
Right.
Okay. I never remember, do we need a motion to adjourn, or we can simply say we're adjourning? No,
No motion needed.
No motion. We are adjourning. I want to just thank everyone who participated in for a really helpful discussion, to all of the public comment we received, and to the commission members who were here and asked really good questions. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you all in March, I think, at the commission meeting in San Francisco, or I hope that we do. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone.